Alicia. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. This is our 6th episode of Wellness with Jenna. Just to give a little bit of background about you, obviously you are an NHS doctor. You're also interested at the moment, so working with Wall Street, am I correct? Mm-hmm. And obviously I just want to know a little bit about your background, kind of how you got into aesthetics, and also a little bit about your kind of doctor/GP background as well. So if you just tell our audience how you got into the medical field, basically.
Okay, thank you so much for having me today, Jenna. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll go a bit about how I became a doctor, I guess. So I studied in Spain. So my primary medical qualification is from Spain. While I was a student, I did 2 Erasmus scholarships, which are like exchange program between European universities. So I spent 1 year in Helsinki University and 1 year in Milan. And then when I graduated, I worked in the Spanish National Healthcare for about 2 years. And that time I was using it to kind of understand what I want to do for specialty and where. So at that time, I was working towards going to do a specialty in Switzerland, and I got a specialty spot there. And then, because of my personal life, just decided to come to the UK. Got into foundation program, which is like the link between specialty training and medical school in the UK. So it's also part of specialty training in a way. And then when I did foundation program, then for 2 years I worked in A&E. Okay. And then I entered the specialty training, which is where I am currently at in general practice. I think that's
amazing. So obviously you start off with NHS, mm-hmm. which is obviously quite a hot topic at the moment, because we all know about, with the junior doctors kind of going on strike and that kind of thing. And I'm guessing, as you also worked in A&E as well, you kind of have a bit of background both with public service as well as private, because you work in aesthetics as well. What's the kind of difference between the two? I'm guessing you can kind of balance your life out between the two, but what's more stressful, and what do you enjoy the most out of what you're doing at the moment? Which one is more exciting for you? What's your passion between the two for the moment?
So it's a bit, I guess, both. And nothing's ever perfect, and nothing's ever completely bad, right? So I think both of them have pros and cons. The NHS, yes, is under a lot of pressure, and I think it's a great thing that junior doctors are trying to fight to get better conditions, not only for us but for those who are coming after us. But I love both. I have to say it's very different. I love the training in the NHS. You have a lot of support. It's just very different. You're able to practice your skill a lot more. Whereas when you're when I say private, in this case it's aesthetics, it's a bit different. It's not private GP. In aesthetics, it's more it's kind of like being an entrepreneur. You have to find your own way. In the NHS, if you want to do training, you know the steps to take. Yes, they may be competitive, they may be hard to achieve, but at least you know what you have to do. When it comes to aesthetics, it's more you have to carve your own way and find your own way, and maybe what works for other people won't work for you. And you kind of what I found myself is that you need to create your own brand in a way. So your person as a brand, you need to do a lot of in social media, marketing. You need to do a lot of more things that those things don't play a part in NHS, because you don't have a hard time finding clients in NHS.
Yeah, we all know that. I think people are struggling at the moment, not with the NHS service. But I think, again, as you say, just carving that path for yourself, I think is very important as a person as well, but also kind of coming above. A lot of people that I've spoken to in aesthetics have told me they've set up their own clinics kind of from scratch. So actually finding these patients, I think is almost the same for everyone who sets up their own clinic, be in aesthetics, dentistry as well. Everything that involves being an entrepreneur and doing something for yourself means that you have to kind of carve your way through. And I think the only thing that helps us at the moment, especially in this kind of generation, is social media. how does social media help you, for example, in getting clients? Are you able to kind of, I have a friend in Norway where she's not able to post her before and after pictures, and I think a lot of countries in Europe are also similar. But in terms of our regulation in the UK, how easy or how difficult is it to get patients? Is it more kind of like, they hear about it through friends, or they're just like hearing about it, for example, on social media, they want to know about it, or is it more you have to kind of grow your own audience?
So in terms of getting clients, for me, let's say that's not my primary focus, because I work in a clinic that already has their marketing in place to find me the clients. So I just go there and perform the aesthetic treatments, but they're also not my patients in the sense that they're the patients of the clinic. So social media helps me in a different way, at least for now. I guess it helps me in what I want to do for the future. So I see it more as a thing of like, again, building my own name for the future. I do see still some patients at home. I have an aesthetic treatment room, but I only see people that I know. So it's more like friends and family or co-workers, and then yes, those people always tell someone else. So but my main focus with Instagram is not getting clients, let's say. In terms of before and after pictures, there's not an issue, at least as long as the patient agrees to it. I never ask patients to let me post the before and afters, just because I feel like I do that if I do like a Models Day I've done in the past, where like the reason why the price of the treatment is low is because I'm taking the picture. But I never ask. Sometimes patients share it themselves, and that's super kind. But I never ask because a lot of people don't want to show that they're getting a treatment, which fair enough. But yeah, I think it definitely helps a lot. People these days, when they are thinking of getting a treatment, they don't go on Google reviews. They go on Instagram and they find. Absolutely. So it's just the kind of times we're living in, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's the same. I think obviously with your situation, I guess working in a clinic is so much more different, because you're working with patients that are probably already registered there, and they're kind of looking for treatment, and they just come to you. And I'm guessing there are other people who also work with you at the same time. Or?
So you mean another injectors or aesthetic doctors? Yeah. Sometimes there's another one at the same time, but most of the time is one per day. So but every day there's a different injector or doctor there. Yeah.
So in terms of like the industry and like networking, I know different industries and different. I'm personally from like an engineering background, but in terms of like medicine, like the medics, are there any networks out there that are probably going to be used for people who are listening to this and maybe want to get into something similar to you? Are there any networks that they can join, or is there anything, or have you kind of like found friends along the way?
Yeah, so I think the networking part of things from me came from just natural connection, which I think is the right kind of networking. So I've never thought of I'm going to be friends with this person because it's going to be good networking, and then by default, I think that's helped me in creating genuine connections. I definitely think things like conferences are great. So I've always been going to conferences even before I was practicing aesthetic medicine. So I felt very dumb going there and being like, people asking you what clinic do you work for or where are you based, and I felt very dumb. But it's something that you need to get over and just start talking to people and going to these things, and I think it helps a lot. So there's a lot of conferences in London where are like free of charge. There is CCR, there is FACE coming up, there's many of them. So if you, this is for anywhere you live, but in London particularly is a great place to be, in the sense that there's conferences happening all the time.
That's so good. And I think also with conferences, you're able to build a network in a way, because there might be people who probably, if you're presenting or if there are other people that are presenting, you're able to kind of bounce ideas back and forth from those people, which I think is really important in no matter which industry you're in, to be honest. I think kind of getting to more like the women in entrepreneurship kind of perspective. In terms of developing a career in such a fast fast-paced kind of environment. How difficult was it for you to kind of find your feet, especially because obviously being a woman in medicine, I'm guessing obviously A&E might have been a bit more, I'm guessing, male dominant, or was it a little bit less? But how did you find your feet, especially because obviously you've obviously moved country, and building a network when you're moving is very difficult. A lot of people do tend to struggle with that, because when you move abroad, it's kind of getting used to everything, right? If they've got family and they've got a support system, it's so much different. But I think how were you able to kind of find your feet at the end of the day, especially when you moved from your home country?
So let's say to make genuine friends that are very close friends, it took me a while, of course, because any genuine connection takes time. So that let's say that now I'm starting to feel like London is home after 3 years now.
Good. Yeah.
But I would say I'm a very open person. The way I am at work is I am very serious about doing my work correctly, and I'm very serious about patient care. But then when I'm with my colleagues, I'm always in a good mood. I'm always cracking jokes. So I guess I'm very approachable, and I've always had good vibes at work. So maybe I didn't have my best friends at work, but since day one I've always been able to, I'm very open, so I've always been able to feel quite accepted at work and feel quite okay at work. But then from there to creating good friends, of course that takes time. But I think it's a lot about your attitude as well. If you're a positive person that people like to be around, you draw people that are also positive and that you like to be around, and then it's kind of like a
it's kind of like a cycle. People who kind of want to network with you or want to know more about kind of your career and what you're doing. I think also depending on the type of environment you're in, your work environment, I think is very important, as you said. Just having people who are going to support you at the end of the day, be it in a male dominant environment or even if it's just female dominant. A lot of times people aren't willing to share, not willing to kind of push you to do better. And I think that's really important to have a good work environment, because if you have something that's toxic, then it's not going to be the most holistic environment for you to grow in.
Definitely.
And I think someone once told me, you want to be in an environment where you're kind of the least smart person there. Just because,
it's true.
Just because you want
that's going to make you grow.
Because you want to learn from these people.
Definitely.
I always wanted to meet people who are always a little bit better than me.
Definitely. Because
you're able to grow, right? If you remain stagnant and you're always speaking to people who are kind of the same level or below, you're never going to learn, and you're never going to want to push yourself.
I think all of my friends are smarter than me and more accomplished than me. It's true, and my partner as well. So I think I cannot have an ego, I guess, but I don't have an ego, and I don't have any insecurity about my intellect or my accomplishments or what I want to achieve. So I've always felt very comfortable to be surrounded by people that are better than me, and it's just kind of a natural draw to them because I admire them, I guess. So I'm not in, if it sounds very weird, but I think I'm naturally drawn to people that I find smart and high achievers and just fun to be around as well. Good people as well. For me, that's so important. The people are nice. No,
I think I completely agree, and I think also for a woman who's starting off very much early career, for me, I'm an early career researcher.
We both are.
But you're obviously,
No, we both are early.
You really do inspire me, as a role model, as someone, I've obviously got to know from you through friends, but also through social media. And I think, just the way that someone kind of presents themselves. Someone always told me that if you want to do something and you can see yourself in someone else as a role model, then if they can do it, you can also do it. You have to see yourself. Say, for example, there are people out there who are probably at college or at uni who are looking to do something like us. If they don't see themselves in someone else, they don't see someone doing engineering or doing or aesthetics, they're never going to want to do something similar because they don't have a role model to look up to.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think you've got to be inspired by someone. There has to be someone who's going to go, I want to be like them when I'm older, or I want to do something like them, and I think that's where social media plays a big part. I think that's where social media, if you're able, I follow your stories all the time.
Embarrassing.
No, but
what are you doing? Like, look at my outfit.
no, but I personally think that's the best way to go, and it's the best way to, as you said, build your platform and your brand as well as like just your audience, because at the end of the day, your audience is not only people who are probably going to like you're not celebrities the other day, but
Of course,
at the end of the day, like these are people who are probably going to come up to you with questions
Mm.
about your career or about like how to sell it when you're moving from a different country, or just like random things like about aesthetics. And I think social media plays a big role in that. Like things like this podcast, for example, or just things where I think our type of audience today is more drawn towards technology. They're more drawn towards the fact that, oh, like this person's like posting this story, like this is where they are. Like if you're at a conference, for example, you're able to share that with people even though they're not in the same place as you. You know what I mean? And I think you've probably touched on that a little bit about
No, but I think it's like super important. Like one thing that I have to say is like one thing I found really cool, and sometimes like when I think about it, I cannot even believe it. Is like when I was working in the national healthcare in Spain, and I was like researching how to come to the UK, how to get into specialty training. I came across some YouTubers, some Instagrammers, and I follow them, and then I watched their videos about how to do those things, and now I'm going at events with them. So, and they're quite big. They're quite like, maybe they have like I don't know, 100K followers or whatever. And then I always go and tell them like, look, I used to watch your videos, and like now we're in the same event, and I find that quite like. As it's just like, maybe like, yes, you can put up a video and maybe like, I don't know, you're not gonna help like humanity, but if you help one person, and I was helped by those people, like they literally put their content out there, and I follow the steps that they said it gets you into specialty training in the UK, and I got into specialty training in the UK because watching a video is much more entertaining than reading all the health education in England and all the GMC and all the stuff. So those people helped me, and then when I meet them, I'm like, you really helped me. Like, yeah, like 5 years ago I watched your videos, and now we're hanging out.
Yeah, but I think it's such a small world as well. Like I have personally met a couple of people, actually, this is so weird, but I was following a couple of the royals actually a while ago, and this is just such a small world. I was at dinner in Mayfair with one of my friends, and I happened to just like meet Princess Beatrice. It was so random, but it's such a small world. Like you never know like who you might meet.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's completely aside of the topic.
No, but it's true.
But you never know who you might meet. It's such a small world. Like people you can be completely inspired by, you know, there might be people who are listening to us, like listening to you, and they really want to like, you know, network or like to ask questions. I think asking questions is so important, because back in the day, like when I was obviously as a student, I was always asking questions. I was probably the one that like the lecturer probably hated.
Yeah.
Because I was always asking questions, like random questions. But I think in research and academia, in anything that you do, right, even medicine, when you're starting off as a student, it's so important to ask these questions, because at the end of the day, like there's no right or wrong question.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
They might get fed up with it like along the way, but you know it's important to answer those questions in your head, so that you know what the next step is for you. You know,
It's true.
I've had so many career questions. I went to my supervisor and was asking, and you know, these people have the knowledge because they're experienced. And if you don't have the guts to like go up to someone you really admire and ask this question, you're never gonna prosper. You're never gonna go further. You're never gonna push yourself.
I think it's super important to also like just read a lot.
Yes.
And then talk to a lot of people that maybe are doing what you would want to do, or just talk about like with them about their experience, about like what it's like to work in that, how did they get there, and then in the end you carve your own way, but then you're picking from everyone, and then you're doing what works for you, because we're not all the same, and we don't have the same background, and we don't have the same skills, or it kind of like you find your own niche. So I think that's the key here. And I love to read. I read like even like when I started and they told me you need to do social media. My friend Dr. Holz, it was like you're making an Instagram right now in front of me, and I really didn't want to, because I felt like it was so cringe. I felt like, okay, like this is embarrassing. And then once I posted the first video, I think I told you earlier when we were just chatting, like the first comment that I saw, it was someone said like her lips are so effed up that I would never go to her, and I was just thinking like, why? Like I don't need to listen to this. Like I have my own insecurities just like everybody else does. I don't need to like like put up with this. And then I was like, should I delete it? But then it was just like, now it's done, and it's even more embarrassing if I just don't go ahead. So now I actually need to make a good. So for example, with social media, I don't know anything about social media. I didn't nothing, but I just read a lot. I read about what engagement means. I read about what you just it's a different skill. You just need to read a lot, you need to understand how it works, and you need to understand how to make it grow. And that goes for anything. And I also talk to people, and it's just like, I feel like in anything you do, you have to be curious. And there are different skills, like having your own clinic, having your own business, that's a different skill. Being an entrepreneur is a different skill, completely different than it is to be a doctor, completely different than it is to be a marketer. I don't know, like, and then at the beginning, it's not like you can afford to, like, the ideal thing would be that someone does all these different things that you are not skilled high enough to do them for you, right? But at the beginning, you don't have the budget, you're just you. So you need to be the marketing person, but you need to also be the doctor, but you also need to be a bit of everything. And of course, it's not going to be great because jack of all trades, master of none, but it's just what you have to work with at the beginning. And then hopefully in the future, at some point, you get to a point where you can actually get people that are very good at that to do it for you. But at the beginning, you need to do everything.
You said something that's really, really true, and I think that's similar to something that I would say. Obviously, you start off as, I'm an engineer by background, but then obviously working with medical devices, working with surgeons, working with people who are completely outside of the engineering industry, trying to engage their interest, as well as trying to do everything else that comes with research, because academia is a little bubble where you feel like obviously you have to do everything. You've got to do all the finances, you've got to do all the admin work, you've got to do, the networking, you've got to be a podcast host, you've got to be every single thing, but just not know everything in depth.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I can say proudly that I know everything about. I don't know everything about engineering, I don't know everything about medical devices, but what I know is that I can, whichever environment you give me, whichever situation you give me, I know that I can pick a little bits of what I've done before, and I can kind of use that skill that I've learned from all these different things that I've tried to do, probably not completely successfully, but I've used every single little skill set that I've learned to finally come to that, to be an all-rounder at the end of the day. Because I think what people now want, especially if you're applying for a job, or if you want to set up your own business, even, you have to be an all-rounder. Because if you're starting off, as you say, as a one-woman army, you're going to have to do everything yourself. And it's like, obviously, your partner's going to help you, your family's going to help you, but at the end of the day, you're kind of always doing everything
definitely
yourself. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business women that I know, they started off doing everything, like finding their own space, for renting out their own space, looking at all the admin work, looking at the finances, how are we going to do this, how are we going to set it up, how are we going to make it, how we're going to gauge our audience. So as you say, like, you have to try and be that.
You just have to be a problem solver, really. Like, that's the main skill that you probably can learn in university, in life. It's not about memorizing things. It's about being able to problem solve, and then at the end of the day, you can apply that to everything. It's not easy. Every time you learn a new skill, you feel like you de-skilled. So if I'm becoming very good at working in A&E, well, I'm not going to say very good, but if I know my job in A&E, or I understand how to do GP training, and I want to do aesthetics, I'm going to be a complete baby when I start to do aesthetics, because I'm going to start from zero, and that's a completely different skill to what I've been training for the last maybe 13 years. So, of course, everything you've done helps, because transferable skills in everything, but I just feel like whenever you learn a new skill, you're de-skilling, and it's not easy to do that to your confidence. It's not easy. I mean, imposter syndrome is strong.
Yeah.
It's sometimes people that are very, very good and very, very experienced still feel it. I don't know if it ever goes away. Maybe it gets better.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it's particularly strong because you feel like a fraud. You're like, okay, like, but then it's important. I'm not saying that you look at other people that you think they're worse than you and you feel better, because that's like really bad consolation. But you also need to understand that people that are very, very confident and that are like don't doubt themselves at all, well, you never know that, right? Because that's very personal. But they're also dangerous. Like,
Yes.
it's I don't have a problem with like doctors or people that are like having some doubts. Even, of course, you don't show them, but that's actually what keeps you safe, because you're not so arrogant that you think you know everything. I don't think anybody knows everything, and everybody can make mistakes. So it's important to always be aware of that. And I think the more like arrogant or that you become, the worse it is for you and the patient and just whatever you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing. You need to keep a bit of like self-doubt, just a tiny bit, the right amount.
But I think self-criticism, you have to, as you said, like with the comments that you were getting at the very start when you set up your platform, I think any type of criticism is good. Obviously, within, the right, the amount of criticism, because obviously if it goes overboard, then yes, you have to address that, because you can't let people obviously undermine what you're doing, because you're doing a big thing, right? Both of us, like, we are in places of our lives where you want to grow your platform, you want to do, and obviously especially when you're in healthcare, you want to help people, right? That's kind of the main goal, be it healthcare tech or be it medicine as well. You want to help people for the betterment, right, of people, and because that's the passion, that's why you kind of chose that degree. But in terms of, I think, self-doubt and self-criticism, I think that's really important. Not just, it's kind of building your personality. It's making you become kind of like a little bit tough-skinned. Because at the end of the day, any type of thing you're eventually going to start, you're always going to have people who are going to support you, but you're always going to have people who are not going to love what you're doing. It might come from a place of insecurity, it might come from a place of, oh, well, why is she doing that? Like, it just doesn't look, it's kind of like a stereotypical thing where they feel like women should be, there's a specific way that women are looked at in society, but a lot of the times, if you're able to, as you say, like have people who inspire you through YouTube, through Instagram, or like anything like that, you're able to see that if these people can do it, so can you. But having that, as you say, that little bit of self-doubt, self-criticism is good, because that's what's going to help you grow.
Definitely.
Because if you feel like you're perfect, and
there's no room for growth.
There's no room for growth, because if you're always a perfectionist, like, I understand that you want everything to be perfect, but at the end of the day, no one is.
Yeah.
There's always room for growth, always room for learning. I think medics, engineers, everyone in this kind of healthcare tech / healthcare sector, if there was no room for growth, then no one would have, created new things.
And you never feel ready. You cannot wait until you feel ready. Like, I didn't feel ready the first time that I worked as a doctor, like fresh from graduation. I never felt ready every time that I changed a medical rotation. I didn't feel ready when I started doing aesthetics the first day that I was working in the clinic. It's just you kind of learn to get comfortable with the feeling of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So the feeling of being uncomfortable, it never goes away. It's just you getting better and managing it. And that's something that nobody taught me. I always thought that you just become good and then you're like complete. Actually, no, it never becomes easier every time that you just need to learn how to.
Level, isn't it? Every single time. And I think also as you grow, like, throughout your career, I think these challenges are just going to get harder and harder. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't really realise, especially when you're at university. A lot of things are kind of spoon-fed to you, because you have a structure about how you want to work, and then obviously when you go to the next stage, if you're going to like the curriculum that's in your kind of field, again, there's a structure, because you're given a framework and this is how you want to work. But then once you reach a point in your career where you kind of want to like broaden, you want to do something for yourself, that's where it's like the structure's kind of lost. Because at the end of the day, it's like, now I want to do something where I have my own creative freedom, my own creative flow. I want to set this up this way, and there's no one kind of above you to kind of guide you what you're doing, unless obviously you have people who've done similar things, and that's where you kind of learn from them. But apart from that, it's kind of like oh, well, this is like where the creative flow comes in. And I think with a field like yours, it's a lot of the time is being creative, being inquisitive and being creative with what you want to do and what you want to bring into your field, I think.
So you mean with aesthetics?
Yeah.
I think it definitely does one of the things that I like about it. So for example, in medicine in general, if you go like to traditional like medical training, it kind of like, I would say, at least in Spain, in Italy, here, you know the steps to get to whatever you want. So you want to be a GP, you want to be a consultant, you know the steps. They may be hard, they may be whatever you want, but you know what you have to do to get there. You know the exams you have to take, you know everything. I think the difference with aesthetics is that you kind of like, you have to build your own path. And it's just not necessarily with aesthetics, it's with any other thing that you do that is different than just being a consultant or a GP. So I like that. I like the challenge. I still think it's so important to go through the whole medical training, whatever it is. I think it gives you skills